There are names that history remembers, and names that history mythologizes. Few figures occupy that uneasy space more than Aleister Crowley. To some, he was a visionary mystic. To others, Britain's most dangerous occultist. For more than a century, his reputation is balanced between fact and legend. In this video, we examine the evidence behind one of the most controversial lives of the 20th century. Crowley, full name Edward Alexander Crowley, born in Royal Leamington Spa in 1875, Warwickshire. He grew up in a wealthy family belonging to Plymouth Brethren, and strict evangelical Christian movement that believed every word of the Bible should be followed literally. His childhood was disciplined, deeply religious, and by many accounts emotionally restrictive. Crowley later described his upbringing as oppressive and developed a profound dislike for organised religion. It is reported that allegedly his mother called him the Beast, and later Crowley chose to embrace this title. As a teenager, he deliberately rebelled against almost everything he had been taught during his younger years. He adopted the name Aleister and began searching for meaning elsewhere, in literature, philosophy, travel, and eventually the occult. This rejection of conventional religion would shape the rest of his life. In his early 20s, Crowley joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Britain's most famous occult society. Members studied astrology, ceremonial magic, tarot, alchemy, Caliban, and ancient mystical traditions. Crowley quickly proved to be intelligent, ambitious, and controversial. His personality created conflict within the organisation, and before long he left to pursue his own ideals. Many respected artists like Crowley explored esoteric ideas during this period. He travelled extensively, studying meditation and yoga in Asia and taking part in expeditions attempting to climb the 2K. These experiences shaped his belief that spiritual development required discipline rather than simply belief, but contrasts with the sensational newspaper image promoted about Crowley to a more adventurous scholar. In 1904, Aleister Crowley travelled to Cairo, Egypt, with his wife Rose. According to Crowley, Rose unexpectedly entered a trance-like state and repeatedly told him that a supernatural being, Awas, wanted to communicate with him. Crowley was initially sceptical, but he claimed Rose led him to the exact display of the stele of Ankh-If-In-Khonsu. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, that is a very complicated word. In the Cairo Museum. A funerary tablet that would later become known as Thelmites is the stele of revealing. Crowley said that on the 8th, 9th and 10th of April 1904, at exactly noon each day, he heard a voice speaking from somewhere over his left shoulder. He claimed the voice belonged to Awas, whom he described as either a spiritual messenger or possibly his own holy guardian angel. Crowley wrote down everything the voice dictated over the course of 3 one-hour sessions. The resulting text became Liber Alvel Legis, or the Book of Law, which would become the central sacred text of his new religion. It is important to note this entire account comes from Crowley's own writing and Crowley alone. There are no independent witnesses or evidence confirming that Awas existed or that a supernatural dictation took place. After receiving the Book of Law, Crowley believed humanity had entered a new spiritual age called the Aeon of Horus. He founded a religion and philosophy known as Thelma, from the Greek word meaning will. The most famous line of the book is, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Despite how it sounds, Crowley argued that this doesn't mean do whatever you want. Instead, he believed every person has a unique purpose in their life called their true will. Historians can confidently say that Crowley wrote Liber Alvel Legis in Cairo in April 1904. He consistently claimed it was dictated by a being called Awas. The book became the foundation of Thelma and had a lasting influence on the occult movements. However, historians cannot truly verify whether Awas was a real supernatural entity or whether Crowley genuinely communicated with one. Crowley openly explored sexuality, ritual practices and drug use at a time where Victorian values still had a strong influence over British society. In 1920, he established the Abbey of Thelma in Cefulo, Sicily. Despite its name, it wasn't a monastery but a small communal house where followers lived together, studying Thelma through meditation, ceremonial magic, writing, art and strict spiritual exercises. Crowley believed that community would help its members discover their true will. Not everyone saw it that way, however. Some former members described the Abbey as a place of personal growth and spiritual exploration, while others painted a far darker picture, claiming there was manipulation, drug use, neglect and dangerous rituals. Many of these allegations remain disputed, but because accounts from former residents often conflict, and some claims were never independently verified. The controversy exploded after the death of a young follower, Raoul Loveday, in 1923. Although medical reports linked his death to illness after drinking contaminated water, newspapers sensationalised the story, publishing lurid tales of black magic, blood drinking and occult ceremonies. These stories spread rapidly across Britain and cemented Crowley's reputation as a dangerous cult leader. What historians can confirm is that the Abbey existed, that Loveday died there, and that the intense media coverage contributed to Crowley's eventual expulsion from Italy. However, many of the Abbey's most shocking stories come from hostile newspaper reports or later memoirs and remain matters of debate, rather than established historical fact. By the 1920s, Crowley had become one of Britain's most controversial public figures. Newspapers regularly describe him as the wickedest man in the world, a nickname that would follow him for the rest of his life. While it is often repeated as though it was an official title, it was actually a sensational label created by the press to capture public attention. Crowley certainly didn't shy away from controversy. He deliberately cultivated a shocking public image, posing in dramatic robes, performing elaborate rituals, and making provocative statements that challenged religion, morality, and social conventions. He understood that outrage generated publicity, and publicity kept people talking. One of the biggest misconceptions about Crowley is that he was a Satanist. In reality, Crowley repeatedly rejected that label. Rather than worshipping Satan, his beliefs centred on Thelma, ceremonial magic and ideas drawn from ancient Egyptian religion, Kabbalah, Eastern philosophy, Western mysticism. Although he sometimes used imagery associated with devils or called himself the Beast 666. He did so largely as a way of challenging Christian ideas and provoking his critics, not as an expression of satanic worship. That doesn't mean he was simply misunderstood. Many people were genuinely disturbed by his behaviour, his writings, and his willingness to break social taboos. But historians genuinely agree that his public reputation was shaped not only by his own provocative actions, but also by sensational newspaper reporting that often blurred the line between documented event, rumour, and moral panic. Crowley's writing helped him shape modern ceremonial magic and influenced later spiritual movements. Musicians such as Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin's collected his work, and his image famously appeared on the Beatles' Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band album. Whether admired or criticised, his influence on modern culture remains significant, even until today. So, who was Aleister Crowley? Perhaps neither a saint nor devil, but an intelligent, provocative, and deeply flawed individual who challenged conventions of the time and understood the power publicity to promote his cause. Nearly 80 years after his death, historians and enthusiasts still debate his legacy. I know this video is very different from what I usually post, but it is a passion to talk about this type of thing, some true crime, some urban legends, some historical events. So I'm planning on making this a series, so if you have any other cases or stories you want me to talk about, please let me know. Put it in the comment section, I will answer my comments. Thank you very much. And like, subscribe to keep up to date. And yeah, go check out all my links below. We have a Discord if you want to chat to other peeps, if you want to give me some ideas for new videos, have at it. And see you next time. Bye bye. So his own idea. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the do export assortic, which contrasts with